Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're going to be featuring Acquisition AI, a great, effective, powerful tool to conduct market research. Next slide. All right, before we get started, we just want to talk about a few logistics. We're going to be muting everyone, but there'll be a chance to speak later on in the meeting. In the meantime, please post your questions to the Q&A box, and we are recording today's session. And again, we look forward to a very interactive and engaging webinar today. Next slide. Well, today we have Mark Turner. He's President and Principal Research Associate at Optimal Solutions Group. I'm also joined by Sadaf Azrar. He's our Chief Data Science Officer. And I'm Tracy Turner. I lead our software development and IT operations. Next slide. And by the way, we have a fantastic team working in the background, so you might see them from time to time in the Q&A and in our support. All right, a little bit about Optimal Solutions Group. We've been around for 20 years, and we're still bringing it to the federal government. We primarily focus on policy research and data science. Our innovation is partially due to our location at the University of Maryland's Discovery District, where we collaborate quite a bit with the professors. And today's product is actually a product of one of the grants we received from the state of Maryland, and we work with the University of Maryland on. A lot of our expertise comes from working with small businesses and procurement and acquisitions. We've done quite a work in evaluating programs such as the 8A program, Hub Zone programs, manufacturing extension partnership, regional innovation clusters, intercity mentorship, VETS, Native American owned business evaluation, economic development programs. So we have a lot of experience in this area, which led to us being a small business and working with these other programs to come up with a solution to make everyone's lives a little bit easier. Next slide. Just to show you, we've been pretty productive when it comes to putting out products that the federal government uses. Our latest one that we're talking about today is Acquisition AI. We also have iAccessible, used by several agencies to perform website testing for accessibility and usability. Our OptiBot is another a recent introduction we've been using lately with a lot of our clients. It helps you disseminate really complex information off of federal websites and to disseminate it in plain language terms. Comments AI automates comments processing and a host of other projects and products that we won't go into today, but we have a good track record in introducing these platforms. Next slide. All right, today, really quickly, we're going to go into a little bit more about the business case for market research modernization, tell you some of the ways that we can reduce procurement acquisition lead time, introduce our product Acquisition AI, which is really straightforward, and then go into Q&A. We think there'll be a lot of questions, and we look forward to answering them. All right, next slide. All right, Mark, tell me a little bit more about what's going on in the market and why we developed this product.
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, first I'd like to start with what we think are challenges and what we've heard from different acquisition officials that we've been engaged with about the challenges with market research. So one, and maybe one of the biggest ones is, there are numerous unleaked acquisition data systems from SAM to Dynamic Small Business Search and many others. So all of that information's got to be kind of pieced together in order currently to do market research, and that's difficult. It's also the case where many agencies have different registries, and this is very helpful, but they're not necessarily complete. And there are different ways that agencies are receiving, different channels that are receiving capability statements. So again, that's another challenge. But then some of the other issues are, and in terms of increased requirements to conduct market research. OMB came out just this past month with a memo articulating the necessity to apply the rule of two to multiple contract awards as well as others. And so, again, increased demand and requirements to do market research. And another OMB directive about the directing agencies to do a better job in supporting and identifying capable vendors from underserved communities, including new entrants and recent entrants. And so all of that is again provides challenges as well as, next slide, opportunities from what we've seen. And so there are other tools out there, and I think some of the people actually attending today are the developers of these other AI market research tools that largely use robotic process automation. We'll go on, but again, that's again a good foundation. But one of the challenges that we believe that's faced out there is the scalability in particular, and in terms of meeting the demands that are needed. So on the next slide, we talk about acquisition AI in particular. And so what is acquisition AI? So it's a AI powered software as a service tool that provides and enables you to auto generate market research reports and do it in literally, I'd say, 3 or 4 sort of simple steps. You start with a draft product service description, and you're able to literally plug that in and a few other steps, and then you get a list of potentially qualified vendors that's aligned with that particular procurement opportunity in terms of the description that you're looking for. And then another step in terms of being able to generate the market research report, but also cull the list based on any number of different factors, from location to different contract vehicles and others. We'll go over that a little bit more. But again, the bottom line is reduce burden on your acquisition staff as well as the vendors. So next slide. So how it works, and again, we'll go and open, I'll turn over to my colleague Sadaf to go through the demo in a few minutes. But one of the big issues is being able to automate the data collection, and to be able to do that efficiently and effectively, accurately, and fast using robotic process automation. And then the other aspect is we've got a number of different AI algorithms built in that help identify and actually do it very quickly, identify similar requirements. We've got a repository of literally all the FPDS data and contract awards going back 7 fiscal years. And so it's looking through that information. And again, the universe of the vendors in SAM, again, that's updated on a high frequency, where you're able to use the AI tool to do a competitive analysis to identify potentially qualified firms, and of course using the interactive filters to then filter them down based on any numbers of elective criteria that you decide to apply. And then also semantic search, again, that helps facilitate that work in a very efficient way. And of course, producing the reports in the interface in a user very intuitive way, where it's intuitive for the users to use, but there's also guides, embedded guides that help the users along the way. So we go to the next slide. Mentioned a number of different sort of data sources. Of course, we mentioned SAM and FPDS. Also want to put a big emphasis on the different government-wide contract vehicles. It's not just GSA Mass, but SOUP, NITEC, 8A stars, and the other ones, as well as agency-specific IDVs. And so we're able to kind of categorize all of those agency IDVs, and of course identify the vendors that have those, and that becomes a part of your ability to query. And then of course agency being able to capture agency repository information, as well as capability statements, and if elected, information about the vendors from their websites. We're able to scrape their websites and again get very contemporaneous real-time information in that way. Next slide. The and again, as we mentioned before, we're somewhat on a journey right now. We have automated sort of many parts of that data collection, but we're making good progress and getting to 100% in terms of 100% automation. As we do that, we'll be able to literally speed up and refresh our data that much faster as we go along this journey to 100% automation. Next slide. The information that we're providing to you in terms of when you see the market research report is information, of course, about the vendor, their name, their UEI, their certifications, 8A, HubZone, and all the others. Of course, we have a tool, and again, Sanaf will talk about it a little bit more in terms of one of the enhancements that make it that much more convenient in helping the acquisition officials select the 6-digit NAICS code. But of course, you're able to see the vendor's NAICS codes and their PSC codes, as well as their size based on that selection of the 6-digit NAICS code. Contact information, past performance, and all the other necessary information that helps you understand those vendors' capabilities. And that information is available in the market research reports. Next slide. With that, I'll turn it over to Sadaf and Jonathan to walk you through AcquisitionAI.
Thank you, Mark. Well, good afternoon, everyone. In the next few minutes, I'll be talking about what it is like to use AcquisitionAI. And it all starts with step one, which is the prospective requirement. As my colleague Jathan is filling it up, is you can enter the information that you want by putting in the product or service description, as he put in, as an infrared camera, and identifying which industry it's part of with the 2-digit NAICS code. And once you do that, we'll wait for Jathan to show us the next step. We will get a list of previously awarded contracts that match the requirement that you put in. So over here, you can see the contract, the award PIID, the requirement description, and the requirement description we're getting is matched from FPDS and archived solicitations available on SAM. You'll see the level of similarity, what agency, what fiscal year, type of set-asides, and so on. So once you have this, you can then, a human user can then identify which one of these results are a good fit to the requirement that you're looking for. And one of the ways you can do it is you can always click on it and to see the actual full description. Once you make the selection, Jathan in this case selected just 2 of them. What we do is we get the list of potentially qualified vendors. How do we get there? We get the potentially qualified vendors based on the vendors who have actually produced this type of service or product, as well as other vendors that have similar characteristics, business characteristics, past performance characteristics to the ones who have actually provided these services in the past. So this way, we are able to mitigate bias. And so here you see the list of prospective vendors. You have information with such as match quality, their NAICS code, when they were established, and so on. And there are a whole host of filters that you can then use to further cull the list. Now, why is that helpful? It is helpful such that procurement officials are better able to meet their requirements. We know that you have, for instance, small business goals, which include goals for small disadvantaged businesses, HubZone businesses, and so on. So from this list, you are able to then filter to identify which of the qualified vendors essentially could go towards meeting those requirements. And the next step is the final step, which is to generate the market research report. And what Jathan right now is doing is he typed in the name of the report and then click on the button, generate market research analysis. Now, this report will use the information and the search results that we have so far, but also allow our procurement official, the user, to actually put in their recommendations, such as when the market research was conducted, potential contract vehicles, and so on. And once this information is filled, you can get the actual market research report, and the research report will look something like this. This is our draft template. Now, the one thing that I would like to say is our job is to make the procurement process and the market research process as easy and as much automation as possible. So one of our enhancements that we'll be starting to work on is that the parts that a user would have to enter in right now to be generated by a closed generative AI chatbot, such that even that part is drafted automatically, and then the procurement official can obviously go edit and update that. In addition to this, as an enhancement, some of the other enhancements Mark already mentioned. Some of these is, we're getting firm level information from SAM, and it's a very good database, as well as DSBS. But oftentimes, the pertinent narrative of and the description are not always there. So one of our further enhancements is to scrape firm level information and their capabilities from the websites, and the URLs are available on SAM. Then one of the additional ones would be to actually use capability statements firms have submitted. And the last one, which is very, very important, and this is where I'm going to hand it back over to Mark, is to continue automating all the data that we're collecting, particularly contracts data, such that whenever our users use this tool, they're getting up-to-date information on contract vehicles and so on that they can use. Mark, over to you.
Sure. Again, feel free to ask any questions along the way. One of the other enhancements, I don't know if you got into it as much, Sadaf, was the NAICS recommendations. Sometimes it can be a challenge trying to select the appropriate NAICS code, because we're, the user is putting in a product or service description. They're providing that context, and we're using our AI algorithms to identify similar requirements that have been awarded, again, across all agencies, not just your agency, but across all agencies going back 7 years. And so we're able to get that information to you very quickly. We're identifying the NAICS codes, and this is all happening in the background and all happening automatically. We're identifying those NAICS codes associated with those similar requirements, and then that's being used to provide recommendations on the selection of potential NAICS codes for the procurement that you're working on right now. And so we call that our recommended NAICS. And you're able to then use that in terms of use a particular NAICS code selection. And as Sadaf mentioned, sort of the different filters to go through and kind of cull your list. And if you want to, say, for that same procurement opportunity, trying to look at some alternatives, you're able to do that very interactively and have literally be able to produce multiple market research reports for the same procurement very easily. And so, again, we've tried to make that as intuitive as possible. But again, there are guides that will guide you through in terms of how to use the tool. Tracy?
Okay, very good. I'm not sure if you want to show the next searching tool, but I dropped a question. If we can go back to the slides. So do you initially start with a 2-digit NAICS to get to the 6-digit NAICS finder, Mark?
Sure. It's our understanding that most acquisition staff only work with, oftentimes work within a narrow band of different products or services they're purchasing. We have embedded guides to help the user select the right NAICS code, 2-digit NAICS code. Again, that's because we are working with literally the universe going back of FPS going back 5 years. We had to divide it up, and so we divided up by 2-digit NAICS code. And so that's one thing that the user has to do there in the beginning. They have to put in a product service description and then choose the 2-digit NAICS code. We have some other enhancements. I think that I've talked about the semantic search. So, for example, I can't remember, was it Kleenex? You can put in a product name. Because it's more of an intelligent artificial intelligence search, it helps you identify the appropriate 2-digit NAICS code.
Okay. So thank you both. I just want to summarize what you're saying. So we're saying that it is very easy to do market research. You just enter your product service description. You have this NAICS code, kind of semantic search to kind of align the NAICS codes. And then you do your down select. We have additional filters to help you find that vendor, and you generate your report, and you're done.
And yeah, there are a couple of different ways to generate your report. You can proceed on your screen. You can download it in PDF format. In later iterations, we'll be able to download in Word format. And of course, you're able to download currently in Excel. So you can download the list of vendors with all the pertinent information that you need in an Excel spreadsheet as well.
And I'm also hearing that due to the extra work you guys have done to connect to these agency databases and keep them updated, I think there's like this schedule by which they get updated, then we update our database. You get this timely database. So that's a big benefit. And then also you can do market research, let's say for task orders based on this new OMB memo that came out last month. You can do the apply and do the rule of two market kind of research as well within a certain agency's vehicle. So I'm hearing that as well. Now we're taking a holistic approach, and I think Sadaf wrapped up with there are some enhancements that you can do, such as take advantage of the existing agency databases with the small business vendors in the databases, the outreach events, and create a profile for all of your vendors based on that additional data and the web scraping that Sadaf said from publicly available databases. Because some emerging small businesses may not have enough past performance to be found through these market research reports. All
That's
right.
correct.
All
And
right.
that's very important, particularly as agencies are following up on the directive to reach out to new entrants and and recent entrants, because oftentimes you have to bring in those repositories of vendors that aren't already registered in SAM, but are interested in doing government contracting.
And we want to clarify, we're not using any generative AI or large language models because there's, some concern about commingling those types of systems. And so these are traditional AI models that you guys have built in robotic process automation. So there is a tendency for hallucinations in the new AI, and so we're not using any of that. Alrighty. Let's see here. I'm checking to see if there are any questions. And I don't see that many questions. And I know we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. I just thought I'd throw out another question for you. Are there any inherent biases that could be happening with these searches?
That is always a potential. We've tried to mitigate the potential biases as much as possible. And the important thing about tools like this is that we're able to monitor and more systematically monitor the potential of any bias. And so with that, we're able to then modify the algorithms in the background, so that we can, if we detect any bias, then we can eliminate that type of bias.
And Mark, from what I understand, you're working with some local universities to have a third party kind of oversight, which is one of the recommendations when working with these types of algorithms. I think we have a question coming. Let's see here.
So Tracy, while we wait for the question, I can just add, just to give a little insight on how we are trying to mitigate the bias. One important way we're doing it is not only just looking at identifying firms that have previously done the work, but also other firms that have similar capacity to do that kind of work. And that is why we are trying to add in the additional information, not just on SAM, but from the website and so on. I see the question is in.
Okay,
That's a good
which one of
question.
you guys? Yes.
No, you can go first, Tracy.
Oh, no, you guys go right ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. We've had discussions with the folks in the PIL at DHS about about their other products that they funded. And I'm not exactly sure in terms of the distinctions, because we haven't necessarily explored, in terms of the back end of those tools as much. But to the extent that our tool is robust in terms of using robotic process automation to keep the data very up to date and fresh. That's one extremely important distinction. And to the extent that there's, as we mentioned before, in terms of transparency on our AI tool, and how it goes about doing the selection and recommendations. And so again, we'd be happy to kind of show you a little bit more in a follow-up meeting, and then we'll be putting out information on our website, on the Acquisition AI site, about the AI tool and showing you our results, our internal testing results. And as Tracy mentioned, we're working with or beginning to work with a university-based partner to help us again monitor and from a third-party perspective, articulate any detection of bias in our models.
But I did want to say that we did meet with DHS PIL, and we presented a few years ago, and they had not had the progress that we had had in terms of our logic and a holistic approach to how this would be done. They may have made some progress. We are down the road already with one agency in particular that we're rolling out to them. And so, yeah, I just think our product is market ready, and we're looking forward to working with you. Now, one thing we thought about are the issues of ATOs and the time it takes to get them across the agencies. We've developed several products that have received several agency ATOs and have passed with very few issues, especially when it comes to security issues. But what I wanted to say is that we're offering also an option to do market research as a service, not like GSAs, but to issue or generate market research reports based on very specific and detailed requirements. And so you can feel free to email us and we'll add a shopping cart to our website. You can pay by credit card or issue an invoice or, excuse me, a purchase order and then we can invoice you. So what are our future plans? Yes, I know we're excited about that because some of the future plans are very easy to implement, which is that holistic integration of your outreach efforts, publicly scraping websites of the firms that you're looking to do market research on, integrating the agency databases. We got a question from GSA at the NCMA meeting recently, and GSA said, hey, we put out our market research, but we never know which way the agencies went. So we can actually help GSA and say, well, they end up using NASA soup, and here's the awardees. Here are the awardees for that particular requirement if it's a BPA. And so the agencies are kind of operating in the dark, sometimes even GSA. So those are some of the interesting aspects and use cases. One agency asked us, hey, can you help us write requirements? We said, well, we're focused on the pre-award phase. We're not a contract writing tool. However, if you get a strong match to previous SOWs, why not use what you've already found? Mark and Sadaf, I didn't know if you want to comment on that, but
Yeah, if I can follow up to this, Jared, your question about sort of future, but then the sources sought. One thing, again, in the conversations we've had with the folks that run the GSA market research as a service, is that the response rates are, well, somewhat low, but 20%, I think less than 20%. And the issue is that I think there's actually an increased volume of market research reports that are not market RFIs that vendors are getting. We're on GSA, so we see all of them. The challenge is that if the response rates potentially continue to decrease, because there's so much, and it's not necessarily targeted, it's a kind of like a broad target based on the sins that you have, then you're not necessarily being able to get the information that you need. Oftentimes on those surveys, they're asking you questions that are publicly available that, again, we have in Acquisition AI, like which GSA schedule do you have, and things of that nature that's that's readily available. With Acquisition AI, you have that information already, and you can use our survey functionality to just ask the questions that you need. Like, for example, you could send the draft solicitation, say, are you interested in bidding? But it's really about the ability to be able to have the information that's readily available, that they've already provided to you directly and or indirectly via all these other different systems, and then the ability to be able to just ask the question that you need.
Mark, I would just quickly like to add to your answer to Jared's question. Also, is yes, sources sought notices are predominantly the best source. One of the ways our tool helps out is you can, as Mark said, get and identify the businesses using the tool that and invite those businesses to respond to the sources sought notices. So that way you can actually get the kind of response rates you would like.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Mark and Sadaf. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Feel free to reach out to us and join us for our next webinar on February 22nd regarding our OptiBot, which I think you'll find very exciting, a new way to disseminate your website's information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.